I got my other cup. Let me put water in it. Hello, everybody! Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Emotional Entrepreneur Show with me and my amazing co-host and partner, Jen Fontanilla. How are you, Jen?
Hello. Hey, everyone. Hey, Summer. How are you?
I am really good. Really good. So I'm good because this is one of my favorite days of the week, Tuesday.
I know. I love it. I love having our show on Tuesdays.
I know. And when I get to be here with you, Jen, and all of you out there, it makes me so happy. Trust me, it really does. I love being here with everybody and talking about something that we can all use that, is pertinent to all of us in our everyday life as well as our professions. So with that said, let's jump into the subject. And the subject is networking and really cultivating our entrepreneurial relationships with emotional agility. I love this topic. I do. And it really means building your community with meaning, intention, with authenticity, supporting each other through our ups and downs, being empathic, creating safe spaces, and doing more than that transactional networking. So,
right.
And to me, just saying that feels so much better. How about you out there? Doesn't that feel better? Hey, y'all. Hey, out there on Instagram, we are streaming live from Instagram as well as LinkedIn, as well as our YouTube page. So what are your thoughts about this and networking with this emotional agility really at the forefront of how we do things? What's your thoughts out there? What's your thoughts, Jen?
I think it's important to, well, first, let me back up. I think there's such a misconception with like networking. I think so many times, and I'm laughing because I spoke on a panel several weeks ago about that, how it was at a networking event. I was kind of bashing, like, when people go to those things sometimes, like, especially if they have the wrong intentions, they're just there to like, oh, how many business cards can I collect, or how many of my business cards can I hand out? And it's just like, dude, nobody's going there to go like, how many can I, it's just funny how there's no honest intention behind it in terms of wanting to serve and give. It's more of like a taking. Yeah. Right. And so I think that's why I think there's a lot of people out there who have been turned off to networking events, because they go and then they kind of feel icky. It's because depending on what night you go or which event you go to, you can end up in a room full of a lot of people where you kind of feel that energy where everybody was just there just to hand out business cards. Yeah. And it wasn't so much that, hey, let me get to know you. Let me find out more about your interests. How did you get into your business? Why do you love what you do? Like, a lot of all that rapport building is not there. And I think a lot of people, especially if you're new to business and you just have these interesting, funny misconceptions of like, yeah, I'm going to go to networking events. And it's like, you don't know how to properly, do it. Yeah. So I think that's something that everybody should learn in the very beginning. And then it's always an art for us to refine, right? How to build better relationships with the people, how to nurture them. And then even past that, I think one of the biggest failures when it comes to networking events is the lack of follow-up. You know, I I had people give me their business cards. I sent a video message, I sent an email literally the same day.
Yeah.
And not one of them wrote back.
Wow.
Dude, you just heard me talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, okay. And I wasn't even, and the part that cracks me up was like, I wasn't even the one that asked for the business card.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I want to read a couple of these comments coming in, Jen, because such great comments. So Bibiana over on Instagram, she says, totally, the transactional stuff only lasts as long as the return swing on the tennis racket. It's dead air. Much better for fostering real relationships. Yes, so agree.
Wow.
And then Melissa Smith from LinkedIn, she says, I find more success with events that include guided discussions, panels for participation before the free for all. Oh, yes, yes, yes.
I like the free for all. Yes, that's a great word for it.
Right? I know. I'm sorry. I'm coughing here, folks. So, I know it's like, everybody in their cards. So, and it's so funny because, well, it is and it isn't. I've been to those networking groups too, where they have a formula for what they do, how they do it. And it's just like, okay, I've had enough of that. And it's like, here, you exchange 3 business cards, you give out 3 business cards, you go find somebody in community, you give back. And it's even happened to me on, different social media platforms where somebody will do an introduction, and I get introductions all the time, and I absolutely love intros. And yet there are certain ones where, right off the go, it's like, ugh, man, I just wanted to learn more about you. I wanted to understand what you do. And it's like, okay, I will introduce you to 3 people. And then, my expectation is, somebody said the other day, this is how I do it. I do it the New York way. I do it da-da-da-da-da. And I'm going to do it this way, the New York way. And it's quick, it's fast, and it's in a hurry. And I was like, and I was like, so what is that?
What was the answer?
I'm sorry, what?
What was the answer? I didn't even realize. I mean, I know there's different styles of pace depending on, East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, but what's the New York way?
It was his way, and it was the quick, fast, productive, efficient. So he was saying way. That was the way that he perceived it. So, and yet it was, I didn't get to know him. I didn't feel like it was like, thoroughly connected with him. And I was just like, well, you know what? You just didn't give me enough opportunity to really get to know what you do, who you are, and what kind of people you work with. And so it's not that you didn't introduce them to people, because I'm all about connecting people, but it feels so much better when you can create, for me, safe spaces to really develop those conversations that will nurture those relationships in a way that it has more longevity to it. So, and to me, that means that those are reciprocal. Those are more resilient relationships. Those are relationships that could potentially form into something both online and offline, which, to me is really meaningful. And as a matter of fact, Bibiana here, who is over on Instagram, we met online several years ago, and here we are. We're going to be going to Boston to see one of our friends on the TEDx stage on Thursday, which is awesome because we met Scott online too, right? On social media. And so this is what happens. They develop into amazing relationships. And Jen and I know this too by putting on GritCon last year and producing a big conference that people from our social media family, so to speak, our social media, communities, guess who came? They're the ones who came out to the event, and they came from all over the country to be in San Diego with us. And guess what they did? They met more people that, we knew, and now they're doing and collaborating and doing things together. I see them doing lives. I see them on each other's podcasts. I see them, doing programs together. So there's so much, I think, that comes from really creating these spaces that are safe, that are nurturing, that are empathic, that are reciprocal in meaningful ways. Jen?
Right. I wanted to just read what Melissa wrote. Yes. Finding the affinity opportunities become the real challenge. Yeah, it can be. I think that's why it's important to, give it a shot. Like, I know for me personally, I back in the day, like this is like around 2014 to about 2017, I was going to like 2 to 3 different networking events a week and driving all over Southern California. I know Southern California very well. And it's like I know Orange County very well and LA County very well. And it was a good experience so that I understood the area and I got to meet people from different regions, but I also got to know, I was going to say the LA way.
The LA way.
I also got to understand what type of events I liked, what I didn't like, what worked at some places I went, or what kind of atmosphere did the host create? All those kinds of things. And then it obviously helped when I got into more event planning and designing events and things like that, just to see what worked well and what didn't work well. And I think it's also important to also just know yourself. Are you the kind of person that wants something like a very intimate setting where there's only 20 people? Some of you might I love like an expo style. There's 5,000 people in a convention center. I mean, for some people, that says like, whoa, that's too much. So neither one is right or wrong. It's just what works for you. And that's why, I like what Melissa said, the finding the opportunities can be the real challenge. I think it's good to understand your style of how you feel you can build those relationships. But at the end of the day, I think what the most important thing is, what is your objective? Is it just there to take, or regardless of what setting you're in, or are you going with the intention to meet people, build relationships, and then hopefully earn the trust in the business? Because I think one of the biggest turnoffs for me is when people just hand the business card and go like, yeah, so if you need a loan, and I'm like, dude, you just gave me your card. I love when in sales, there's always been that analogy compared to like dating, right? It's just like, okay, I just got your number. I just got your business card. And it's like you're trying to get married already and move in together. It's just like, we just met. And I think that's what's so funny when I see those things happen, where people don't realize like, I don't even know if I want to work with you. And I don't even know if you want to work with me. Like, especially when you get into like, where there is a lot of trust that's involved, especially with financial transactions, health involved. I mean, it's not like we're just exchanging little, products that there's low risk. So, and that was something that I had learned over the years, where depending on what your service is or what your product is, there's going to be higher barriers of trust to earn versus other types of services or products you might be selling.
Oh, absolutely. Let me read a couple of these comments here. Bibiana said, I went to AWP once and it was 25,000 people, but working at my university booth, I met people and was able to actually talk to them. And I really like what she said there, because when I was looking for interns, I would go to different universities and set up a booth, and I would talk to the students, and I would have, my little clipboard out there and have them sign up. And then I'd have descriptions of the different jobs that, internship opportunities and such. And it was a great way. Being at a booth was a great way to meet people. It was a great way to have those conversations. And sometimes I would have like 4 or 5 students, kind of like semicircle around the table, just listening in. And I was like, okay, now it was almost like a group meeting. And I'm like, any questions and any, and they were like, yeah. So would we be able to do this, or would we be? And I'm like, absolutely. We could devise something or create something together or whatever, So yeah, think about what kind of setting you like. Also, sometimes maybe just take the chance and see if you like it. And that's what I did, just like Jen. Went to these different meetings. I've been to, you know, a huge conference at the Miami Heat, Coliseum. I went to, a huge conference, a women's conference in Virginia. I go to smaller ones, but it's like you just have to feel, and there's a different purpose for each, right? So when I go to the bigger ones, it's more like education. I want to be educated. I want to learn something here. So understand what your mission is and your vision is for whatever you're doing in regards to building that community with emotional agility. And working in the human services field for over 30 years now, what I've always found is when there is safe environments and when people know the mission of the actual networking opportunity, and they're not going in there blindly, but they actually know exactly what's going to be expected of them or what the mission is, I think that that's more comfortable. It creates more of a comfort, because when you get into somewhere and their mission is such, but they didn't tell you this is their expectation, it's kind of like that's when I start backing out going, okay, I don't even know you. And now you're asking me for things.
Mm.
And that sets me off, because I know, like most of you out there know, a lot of people. And those people are already in my network. So if you're asking me for things, why wouldn't I give it to my network first? The people that I've been working with for a long time, the people that I've built a trusting relationship with. It's not to say that I can't go and meet other people, but if you're not giving me a chance to get to know you and you're already asking me for things, that's going to turn me off, and I'm going to go directly to my community and try and find the resource that I need there first, because I know them. I trust them. So it's also about knowing them, understanding them, what their mission is, or the people in your community, as well as building that trust. And
Right.
building trust, I think, is really valuable and really important, and creating those safe spaces. And if there's one thing that I've learned by doing in person, virtual um, uh, events, is people always say, even after GritCon, even after our digital event, wow, we were able to build a community. We were able to connect with people in a meaningful and intentional way. We continued those relationships afterwards. We were able to, create A, B, or C from what happened at that event. And you even saw it, Jen, where remember when we had GritCon in the night before, we had um, that great, what would you call it? The get together at the restaurant.
Yeah, the pre-party.
Yeah, the pre-party.
All I can think of and see is the giant chicken.
Yeah, I know, right? And people loved it. They loved it because there was a casualness about it, but they were able to talk, they were able to learn about each other. People were going from table to table to introduce themselves. So when it kind of bridged the gap into the conference the next day. And so when people came into the conference, they felt more comfortable, they knew each other, they'd sit down and they talk with each other, or later on they'd go to the different tables and such. So I think there's a lot of ways that we can really cultivate meaningful relationships in our entrepreneurial communities with that emotional agility, with that resiliency, with that empathy, and with real intentional impact. So let me read what Bibiana says. She says, right? I feel the same way. If they bulldoze you and don't even care about you, it feels weird and shallow. It
Totally.
felt, yeah. And so Bibiana said about GritCon, it felt safe there. We could all be ourselves. And that just thrills me to pieces to hear
Right.
that
I love that.
people could
Thank
be
you.
themselves and feel safe in an environment where you're building community.
I love that you brought up the whole thing with GritCon, because the pre-party, especially because I think when we have opportunities to do the pre-event, a lot of times I will hear people say things like, "Well, I just want to go to the main thing. I just want to go to when it's the talk, the main thing, and I don't need to go to the other stuff." you are missing a huge opportunity there. I can't tell you, I've been in sales for a long time. And even when I have gone to, especially a lot of financial conferences within the companies that I was with, but also going to other people's conferences where it was a company that was hosting it for multiple different advisors from different groups and firms. All the networking, all the opportunities happen in the hallways. Outside of the meetings, outside of the main event, it's always those outside parts of the entire weekend or the event where those are where the communications happen. That's where the relationships are built. I have gone to different conventions and met people, and then we ended up, doing lots of work together and making tons of thousands of dollars together because of being in those spaces and those places where it wasn't necessarily the actual event only. And so I think a lot of times when I hear people say like, oh, I don't want to go to that, I'm like, one, you're totally missing out, because all the people that do go build relationships before the thing. And so now they got people to hang out with, they got people to follow up and, continue a friendship with or a business relationship with. And you just missed out because all you thought was that you were there for was just to go to the thing to hear the information, and you missing the whole point. And so it was like, I love that you said that, Bibiana, that you felt safe and that we could all be ourselves. And so and then it's more fun. It's so much more fun because now you're like, hey, what are you doing for lunch? Or like, hey, we're all going to go here. Some people even went out and partied. It was cool.
Oh my gosh.
I wasn't there, but I was like, I am done. But like, it was so cool to see people connecting on a more intimate level. Like, hey, we're gonna go, we're gonna go bar hopping, we're gonna go grab dinner over here, and whatever the case. So it's just great, and these people are still friends, and not only that, even if you have an opportunity to connect online. When you have an opportunity to build a community offline, when you have the opportunity to do it in person, it is the most interesting thing. It's almost like you all know each other already. You just haven't met in real life. And that's exactly what happened with me and Summer.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. We'll tell you that story in just a second, but I want to read what Bibiana said. She said the casual thing the night before at GritCon, she said, felt so easy. And the next day we recognized people from the night before. It's awesome to have both. Yeah, just that being able to bridge that, between the more formal event and the more casual event was so nice. But yeah, if you want to get into that, let's get into that, Jen. I know we've told this story before, but I think it's so important to show, and it exemplifies what we're talking about regarding building relationships, meaningful relationships. Also, it was a community connection. So it was somebody who got us together and where then we got together, worked with each other for, you tell the story. You tell it better. You tell it better. You really do.
We have this mutual friend. Shout out to Lauren Barton. And so I've known Lauren since 2010. And then Summer, and ironically, I met Lauren in San Diego at a party, at a birthday party. And then we stayed in touch over the years. And then he went off to do his own thing, and same thing with myself. And then one day he sends me this message. He's like, hey, you got to meet my friend, Summer. I think you would be great on her podcast. She interviews women that are doing great things. I'm like, yeah, cool. And so at this time I was doing a lot of podcast interviews. So I was like, definitely interested. I was trying to build that up. And I always love meeting, if a friend is introducing me to somebody and they know me well, then it's like, it's more than likely going to be a good fit. Yeah. Very rarely is it ever like a wonk wonk. So I was like, okay, cool. And then, so Summer and I connect, but it was crazy because she's, vouching for people before they get on her podcast. And it was supposed to be quick. And we were like, I think it was like a 2-hour Zoom or something.
Yeah, it was long.
And it was great. And then we totally hit it off from the jump. And so, she had an opportunity to be in California because her book had come out. So she was promoting the book. And then her book, F Yeah, you should check that out. It's so good. I finished it in like a day. That's another story. So So months later, then I go do a podcast episode with her, and then I ended up doing a second one because it was just like we had so much synergy. It was great. And by this point in time, we still had not met each other in person because I'm here in West Coast LA, Summer's in the DC East Coast area. So we've always worked in, different time zones. And then during COVID hit, and then by the time it was that same year COVID hit, it was in August, she messaged me. I think it was July or August. And I'm driving and she's like, I have this idea. Why don't we, I wanted to do this one show and I wanted to, support, women, entrepreneurs and all, different kinds of things. And it wasn't fleshed out it was way less than how I just described it. But all I knew is, and this is a testament to networking, building relationships, whatever word you want to call it, is that I almost didn't care what the freaking project was. I loved her so much already. I was like, let's do it. I don't care what we're doing. Let's do it. And I wanted to support her in it. And so that was about 3.5 years ago.
Wow.
And so, yeah. And so fast forward, it wouldn't even have been till I think 1.5 years. We didn't even meet till 1.5 years later in person. We both met up in the Bay Area in San Jose, and it was like funny because we just hugged and it was like nothing.
Yeah, it's like we just knew each other forever, and that's how it feels still, right? And I just think that there's just a very special connection there. And I think we just both knew when we were spending that first 2 hours online with each other during that Zoom call, we were just so excited. And funny enough, that excitement continues today. And I think because we are so similar in certain ways, but then we are very different, and we bring those differences and that creativity together, which just really plays off each other really well. But we get each other too because of the similarities. So.
Oh, and we're both Aries. Say no more. Okay, I gotta read what Melissa shared right here.
Yes, please.
In a related context, I pursued an online master degree with residency. The experience was very similar to networking events with pause points for socializing and more formal events. As we all had a shared purpose, it helped foster the connections and led to enduring relationships that more often than not remained virtual, but led to deeper connections in the post-grad world. Yeah, I love it. And that's what's so great is when we're able to bridge that gap between the online and in-person. So thank you for sharing that. I also wanted to go back to what Bibiana said earlier about she added something. She was talking about how the casual thing the night before the event, before the main speakers and all the actual event program was, one thing I liked was there were people that flew out of state by themselves and didn't know anybody.
Right.
And they showed up to the party. And so I commend people for doing that, because that takes courage, especially if you're not an extrovert, especially if you're not somebody that is used to doing things like that and just flying out, out of nowhere and then coming to a place where you don't know anybody. And yet those people were welcomed. And that's the thing too. I think there was like an etiquette that we need to learn, since we're talking about emotions, but there is an etiquette that we need to remember, that if there is somebody there that looks like they're by themselves, like welcome them. Yes. And especially if you're trying to build that community, and especially if you are the one putting on the event, because you want that person to feel welcome. You want that person to come back. You want that person to feel they're well taken care of. And so, a few people that were there that didn't even know anybody, I was just like, wow, this is amazing. And then because they were there the night before, the next day, like they were hanging out with everybody. They didn't feel alone. Yeah. They felt connected. And I think that was one of the best things that came out of it, that people felt connected, even if they didn't know anybody, even prior to coming there. So that's what I think was so great about the community, that everybody took care of each other and everybody felt welcomed.
Oh, absolutely. I just love using Gricon as an example, because there was so much built there. There were so many relationships built there. There was safety built into the conference itself. So it was a really safe environment. And one of the things that ended up happening, as a funny and not so funny then aside, it ended up being one of the coldest days
Right.
Ever. Like in years in San Diego, one of the coldest days.
Oh, but even worse than that summer, there was a storm alert. You
Yes,
were not supposed to be driving. Like, you guys, when your phone starts, and then there's like some alert, it's like, do not leave unless you have to. I was just like, of
oh
course,
my gosh.
boring. There was a storm.
It
There's
was
flooding.
Yes, flooding. It was insane. It was crazy. And so this is what I mean about, and I'm going to go into this example because this exemplifies the resiliency that the community had as we brought them together because of the connections that we've made along the way. And because it was so cold, and Bibiana says it was wet too. The streets were flooded in San Diego. It was bonkers. It was bonkers. And San Diego is usually a nice 70, 75,
Perfect weather.
it's perfect weather most of the year. Well, this beautiful events place that we rented, it didn't have the heaters working because they thought,
right.
yeah, they didn't really need to, repair them because San Diego is such that it's not cold there.
Right.
And of course, we hit it on the coldest day. So we had this great community who was cold, but they were like sharing jackets, sharing hand warmers. They were making coffee. They were, they pulled together so incredibly during that event because of those connections. One, that they built online. They became a resilient community. And they also, because of the night before, like Jen had mentioned, they had kind of nurtured those relationships that night. So when they came to the more formal conference, it was like people knew each other. People felt safe in talking to each other and being themselves. So it was so nice to see that we had built this emotionally supportive community that was, hey, we're going to get through this. Whatever this is, we're going to get through this. And another example of this is, and I want to touch on something Melissa said too. So let me take a step back really quickly. So she went to a school with an online program that had residencies, as did I. I went to it was my doctoral program, and it had residencies. So we started in person, and then we would do some of our work, by ourselves, so independently. And we met our professors, we met other students from around the world. So we were able to cultivate those relationships with people in person, and then go away and then continue to build those relationships. So I love that you had that experience too, Melissa, because that's exactly what I had for my doctoral program. And I think things like that also help you build a great community to meet in person and then, go and work independently, but knowing that you have that community behind you. And I think, one of the things that I want to mention here too is as you're building these communities, they really become very connected. And so one of the examples I have is when I was diagnosed with cancer, I had no idea, it was such a surprise. My community on LinkedIn, my community on Instagram, my community on Facebook, a lot of people got together and they did so many amazing things. Jen was part of that. She kept it from me. She helped them build a book, create a book, and develop this and lay out this amazing book that they made for me. They, raised funds for a present for me. I mean, they did all of this incredible stuff without my knowledge, but came together as a resilient, supportive, empathic community. And that's what I mean. When we build those safe communities, it just feels different. And the intention is different because there's longevity there. We want to support each other. And I think that's when we talk about building our entrepreneurial communities, we have ups and downs as entrepreneurs. We all know that. We've been there. And to have a emotionally agile and supportive community makes a huge difference.
Yeah. We love you. That's why. And that's wonderful.
Yeah. So So we've had so many great comments today, so many people participating in wonderful ways. Thank you for being here. The last thing I will ask, Jen, is what is your nugget for today?
Oh, you know what? I would say if you haven't, if you know, the next event or even maybe the next time you have the opportunity to, you know, connect with somebody or meet somebody, I want to encourage you to intentionally listen. I don't see this happen often. And so I think it's important to just kind of check yourself to see, are you doing more listening or speaking? Well, I'm going to cough. Excuse me. And I think something that's really interesting. Hold on. I'm going to cough. Let me mute myself.
Okay.
You know, when you're like, I'm trying to talk through it, it is not working.
We
was like, let me just put you guys on mute. So
we're
anyway,
listening.
so I think you know, I heard this from somebody, I can't remember, but I remember I was like, oh, this is such a great check, something to just check yourself on, is like when you're listening to somebody, are you really listening and being present, or are you already thinking, okay, what am I going to say next? And I think it's just human nature, right? It's not, you know, don't make it wrong, but I just think it's important. And I never forgot that when I heard that, like, just like be really present and listen to what that person's saying instead of trying to think of the rebuttal, the answer, well, what am I going to say next? Like, just really be present when you're having a conversation with somebody, whether it's in person or online.
Oh, I love that. I want to read this comment really quick. It's what do you do in what do you do in one of these events when the person only answers in yes or no and you feel super awkward? I would say at that point, they may feel awkward or be answering in yes or no's because they haven't really created that relationship with you yet. So maybe ask those open-ended questions where you're going to get more than a yes or a no. Maybe something that you can talk about, maybe something that they're wearing, or maybe something that might be of interest to them, or, you know, so maybe what are your thoughts about, you know, versus, you know, how's your day, or not even how's your day, but a yes or no, you know, something where they would respond in a yes or a no. One of those open-ended questions might be helpful, just because they might be nervous, they might feel awkward, they might be shy. You know, you might see me here, but when I go to events, I'm kind of shy sometimes. So I need to get to know people before I become hello in your face. Hello. So in your face.
I agree. I would say that's probably the best place to start, is to lean more towards the open-ended questions, because if you start asking, it's funny, I deal with this with my child all the time. Like, I know when he's not listening. He needs to listen to the show, because like I'll ask him a question that requires to pick this or give me this or this, and he'll just go, yeah. And I'll look at him like, dude, I did not even ask you a yes or no question. And I'm like, he's like, wait, what? And I'm like, you're not listening. See? But yeah, if you ask open-ended questions, you know, you'll at least set yourself up to minimize the yes or no responses. Now, I will add to this. You're just gonna sometimes run into people who are like that. Either like Summer said, they might be nervous. Some people are not, they're not used to networking. They haven't learned. I actually went through a networking certification program, believe it or not. I'm a certified networker. And there are certain questions. But you know what? Over the years, I have found that, like, there are just some people that don't know how to converse, and I will just gracefully exit the conversation. And you know, after a while, I kind of I know me, and I know my tipping point when, like, okay, dude, I'm not gonna get anything more from this. I've asked every open-ended question I could based on the little that I know. Sometimes that person might be in an attitude, they might be in a mood. I don't know what people came into the meeting or the event with. I don't know. I don't dig and dive into it, but I just have the grace of saying like, okay, maybe this is not, they're just not feeling this right now. They're just, they either, whatever the reason, but I know my tipping point. And after a certain amount of time, and I can feel it very, very quickly, almost in 10 seconds, I will give it a couple of minutes, but not even minutes. I get to a point where I'm like, this is going nowhere. And that's okay. Yeah. Because I have an abundance mindset. So I don't need to meet every single person there. And then after I get to that point, I'm like, you know, it was great meeting you. I hope you enjoy. I'm going to go over here and talk to these people, or I'm going to grab, if there's food, whatever. But I'll, you know, I just like, you know, I hope you enjoy the rest of your night and get to meet some other people. And then I walk away. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think sometimes we have to give ourselves that permission that I don't have to connect and give business to everybody there. That's right. Yeah, it's okay to say I'm sorry. And I mean your head, like, I'm sorry, this isn't going anywhere. I mean, it's like, again, the dating analogy. You're not gonna say, well, I think you shouldn't say yes to everybody. Have that discernment. It's no different than when you're networking. Have the discernment of if this is a, you know, a business relationship that you want to continue or further. And it's okay if it's a no. You don't got to be friends and, you know, build relationships with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So
what's your nugget?
Well, you know, I love what you just said. And I'm going to piggyback off of that. You don't have to build relationships with everybody. That is brilliant, because I think it's important when you go into a networking event, whether it's a webinar, a conference, you know, a panel, whatever it is. Why are you going there? What is your intention? Know what it is and why, right? What you're trying to gain, and are you trying to, or what are you trying to give, or what are you trying to learn? But know your own mission, your mission for why you're doing what you're doing. Yeah. And when you're clear, I think you're going to be more clear with those people around you, so they have a better idea of your intentions.
Yeah.
And I think that's being just more transparent, more honest, more authentic. Because what I will say about the guy who wanted to do it the New York way, I respect that. Why? Because he was really clear. He was really clear about what he wanted and what he didn't want. And I could tell right away. And I know another coach that he just posted the other day. He's like, I don't like small talk. He's like, I really don't. And I was like, you know what? Good for him. If he doesn't like it and he's telling you right up front, great. I know the person that he is. I like the person that he is. But was I in one of his meetings and coaching? Yes, absolutely. But I also know what he likes and what he doesn't like when he goes to network. So be really clear, be transparent. And I think that honesty and that transparency will help others get to know you. Or, like you said, Jen, walk away. And that's okay. And with that said, we are coming to a close. We, again, just covered how to cultivate your entrepreneurial community with emotional agility. We'll be back next week with a different subject matter related to the emotional entrepreneur. We're here every Tuesday. If there's something that you'd like for us to cover, please let us know, because we'd be happy to, as long as it relates to being the emotional entrepreneur, or being, you know, or something that's going to help you in your entrepreneurial journey. Now, with that also said, Jen and I are coaches. And if you have any questions regarding our coaching or our coaching programs, please, you know, feel free to DM us. Anything else, Jen?
Nope, that's it. We're going to dance it out.
Okay, let's dance it out. We love to do this. So if you haven't been with us before, we dance it in, we dance it out. We stream here on LinkedIn. We stream on Instagram at the Emotional Entrepreneur page. And we also stream on YouTube. All right, everybody, we are going to dance this out. Take care and have a wonderful week. Woo! Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Thank you.